So the Boulder problem had been, was the biggest hurdle, the biggest question mark in all of my preparation for Freerider. It always kind of stemmed around, can I do the Boulder problem? Will I feel comfortable doing the Boulder problem? And so I didn't go up there for the actual climb until felt comfortable that I could execute it well and that I would be able to execute it under pressure. So on the day that I did it, there wasn't much going through my mind. The whole point was that I'd already sort of settled those questions and I just went up there and just did what I was supposed to do. And I suppose that's probably somewhat similar to the training that like military goes through or like law enforcement goes through, where the whole point is to train you to act reflexively in certain situations and not think about it. Because the reality is, if I climbed half of the boulder problem and then just paused on one of the holds and started to really reflect on where I was and what I was doing, like I'm just holding on to a little hold, and then I just started looking around, thinking I'm in the middle of the hardest part on all of El Cap. It's like, yeah, after a few moments, I'm sure I would crumble and be like, "Oh my god, get me out of here." It would all fall apart for sure. But the point is that because I had prepared mentally ahead of time, I didn't stall out in a situation like that. I knew that I could just climb right through it and do the climb.
And so what are you actually thinking about when you're climbing? Or specifically on that section? Do you remember, like, what is what you're
No,
thinking about?
so on something like the boulder problem, I mean, I'm not really thinking about anything, and that's kind of the whole point, is just that blank execution.
And
To
there's
not
no music playing, there's no nothing, it's just your
no.
blank execution.
Yeah, though oftentimes on easier terrain, I do play music just because it's a nice way to, it's nice to listen to. And it's also a good way for me to keep track of time because I know
Mhm,
how long tracks are normally. So it gives me a sense of the pace that I'm climbing at. But I mean, so a face like El Cap or the route free rider can kind of be broken into maybe thirds. It's just the way the route breaks down. But
mhm.
so probably a third of it is sort of cutting edge climbing that I had to be 100% focused on. And basically my mind was blank. I was just executing. It's all pretty intense. And then a third of it's kind of more moderate, and then a third of it's, like, pretty easy, actually. And so on that easy terrain, that's where I can be listening to music, that's where I can be enjoying the view, I can look at the birds, I can, like, yell at other climbers or whatever, it's all, like, pretty chill. But so for a third of it, I'm just enjoying the experience, and then a third of it, I'm paying attention, but it's still enjoyable, and then for a third, it's, like, intense, and I'm just doing it.
Right. What was your first meal that you ate when you finished Oka?
I don't know, actually. I know that the next day happened to be I guess I must have done it on a Saturday because the next day was Sunday brunch at the Iwani Hotel, which is the really classy hotel in Yosemite Valley. And so the whole film crew went for this really fancy Sunday brunch. And I remember because I hadn't eaten dessert in months, I was on this no sugar kick because I was trying to stay super fit for extreme climbing, And and so then we went to Sunday brunch and I had all this like Nutella filled French toast and stuff like that. It's totally, it's totally, I was like, oh, so good.